before we.
So hi everyone, this is Talk Back. It's now September 9th. We're going into over 6 months of living during the coronavirus pandemic. We've had so many disappointments in families, in terrible lives lost, in health. But one of our also disappointments is that we're missing out on the human connection that only theater can give you. The live stage, the live audience, and the creativity, the emotions, and that connection. Broadway has been dark. Our regional theaters are dark. Our theaters in the Eastern Connecticut area are dark, and we crave that connection. But we'll make up for it today by talking to two people who love, especially musical theater, Broadway musicals, even movie musicals, and we'll have a fun chat with them about it. I have two special guests. Lisa Foss is the president of the board of the Chestnut Street Playhouse in Norwich, which was going to have a wonderful, wonderful repertoire of shows coming up this season, which unfortunately we won't see. And my granddaughter, Carly from Boston, is a devotee of musical theater, getting a taste of Broadway and loving it, growing up like her mom did, with me playing Gershwin, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hammerstein, and all of the wonderful Broadway music, and that she is so fond of now too. So we have two great guests to talk about their favorites. What is your favorite Broadway musical? What is your favorite movie musical? Let's meet Lisa first. Lisa, hi, it's so good to have you on. Tell us about your background in musical theater, your talents, and your experiences.
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me. I can take it way back. And as a kid, I was a super shy little girl. And I did dance class, all that kind of stuff to try to bring me out of my shell. And then in 5th grade, I was cast as Peter Pan in Peter Pan. And that really was something that changed my life. I don't think I've ever been out of a show since then, in fact, or at least not for long. I did theater all throughout high school and lots of community theater. Then I majored in musical theater at Carnegie Mellon University, which is a wonderful, really a pretty famous program where a lot of tremendous people graduated from there and graced the Broadway stage. So I learned a lot. I found a second home when I came back here to start my family in Connecticut. Found a wonderful place. Used to be the Spirit of Broadway Theater, now is the Chestnut Street Playhouse, and that really is like my second home. My job that pays me is with Wesleyan University. I run a program there called the Center for Creative Youth, and that is an immersive program in the arts for teenagers from all over the world that runs in the summer. And they study creative writing, music, visual arts, theater, and musical theater. So my life is really centered around the arts, participating, leading, directing, choreographing, teaching, and being an artist myself. I perform whenever I'm able to. And like you said, Sheila, I'm really missing it right now, too. There's nothing like being part of a live theater experience.
Right. So, Carly, tell us about your experience learning about theater and studying it, listening, and enjoying it.
All right. Well, my experience is not as extensive, but I've been listening to theater and watching theater since I was really little, like as long as I can remember. When I was 7, I started performing in community children's theater, and I did that for many years up until I started high school recently. And yeah, I've always just loved listening to the music. Musical theater is something completely different than any other type of music, than watching movies and reading books, and it's really special to me.
Great. And so this summer, to make up for not being able to see live theater, you and your mom had a project. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this summer we made a list of all the movie musicals that we could think of, and we started watching as many as we could. We watched 20 to 30 over the course of the summer, which was a really fun thing to try to do. We didn't get to all of them, there are just too many, but we watched a large number. So
That's great. So we'll be talking with you and Lisa about your favorites, the favorite movies as well as the favorite Broadway shows. Just one more question, Lisa, about the Playhouse. You had a great list of shows that you were going to put on this season. What's happening with the Playhouse now? How are we going to see it in the future?
Well, unfortunately, we have to really follow the guidelines that the state has set for us and for everybody's safety. And in our particular situation, we're an intimate 69 seat renovated firehouse. For us to operate with only 30% capacity would just not be cost effective. And we really just can't do that right now. The rights and royalties alone for performing shows we would never be able to make that money back. And we'd have like 18 people in our audience, and never mind with our dressing room situation, there's no way that we could really socially distance. Everybody goes up and down the same staircase. The way that our pit is situated, it's a lot of challenges. And one of the benefits of our beautiful space is that performers are right there close to the audience. And
Right.
all of the stuff that's going on now, it's not something that I think our patrons would really feel comfortable with yet. But we're strategizing. We have, a fabulous golf tournament coming up that Rodney Green of Old Times, the vice president of our board, has run, that is picking up a lot of steam. So hopefully that'll give us enough support to be able to carry on. And in the new year, we can really examine a plan of what's going to work. We also have ideas for fundraisers and doing some maybe music events, but full on theatrical events with the restrictions of our space it's just not wise to do right now. It's one of the times where it's advantageous for us to not have a staff. We have, a wonderful bookkeeper who is keeping us going, and all of the board is working so hard, tirelessly to, keep all the balls in the air and keep the place going, because we're very dedicated to seeing it through this crisis, as we've seen it through other
Right.
things that have happened, whether it's the building in disrepair or, the funding that we had to do when we changed over to be Chestnut Street Playhouse. We're committed to seeing it through because we have a lifelong passion for the arts, and that commitment is not going to change. And I think we'll have the support to continue and come back strong when everybody's going to be craving that connection again. I really do believe that in my heart.
Well, it's an important community resource, and so let's hope we can get it opened as soon as possible. So now let's start our list. Carly made up a list of categories, and I asked both of them to give me their top, it's either 5, 6, or 7 shows in each of the categories. They don't know what each other has chosen, and I prepared a slideshow that will reveal all their choices. So let me go to the slideshow, start my screen, and here we are. Can you see the screen, Carly and Lisa?
Not yet.
I can't. No.
You see it?
No.
Not yet, Sheila. No.
All right, let me go back. Allow. Okay, how about now?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so the first category are top musical comedies, and this is Lisa's list. So Lisa, Book of Mormon, why is that number 1?
I'll try to keep it brief, but this show was so irreverent. It was like nothing else that had really been on Broadway, in terms of how far they took the comedy and the subject matter. But one of the things I love most, besides that, it's very funny. It also has a lot of heart. There's actually, people have criticized it for being, making fun of religion and culture. And I think that if you look at the story of how people find their truth and their purpose, it's actually quite a beautiful story, and hilarious. And the music is so great. Every song sounds like it's been part of the musical theater lexicon for ages. Like, it's all tuneful and singable, and I think the music is fantastic.
Right, right. I agree with you too. It's one of my absolute favorite shows because for me, it reminds me of an old-fashioned real musical. The music is fabulous, and notwithstanding the irreverence, it is a true Broadway musical with the choreography and the music. Let's go on to your second choice, which is Avenue Q. Why?
Avenue Q, also another irreverent musical, but what I loved about it is that it was so new with what it brought to Broadway. Telling the story that they did with puppets, they could get away with a lot more than you normally could with people, and they used that to their advantage. Again, pushing the envelope and really going for something really innovative. And I love that you could see the puppeteers rather than just, if you watch Sesame Street or any of those puppet shows, you see the puppet, but not the puppet master. And having them side by side and share the stage really gave you more of an appreciation for just how skilled these performers were. And I just loved every minute.
I remember when that show won the Tony, it was kind of a big surprise win, but that show is still playing somewhere.
Yeah, it was on Broadway. It was off Broadway, then on Broadway, and now is back to off Broadway, continuing its run because it's still selling.
Right.
Well,
okay. Your third show is The Producers.
Yes, this, the people are familiar with the Mel Brooks movie, but bringing it to the Broadway stage just let a whole new audience discover it. And again, it's irreverence. And who else but Mel Brooks can get away with featuring a song called Springtime for Hitler? It was a big spectacle and just one of those great big Broadway musicals with the star power of Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick. And the music is terrific across the board. Not a lot of female parts. The female parts are a little gratuitous, but other than the music is really a lot of fun.
Right. And of course, only Mel Brooks could have been irreverent and, as you mentioned, write a show about Hitler that people will laugh at and dance at and sing at. Only he could do that. Let's go on to your next one. A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder.
Yes, and this is a newer show, but if you hear the music, it sounds like something that was written back in, it's a very classical, legit musical, not a pop musical. And that's rare for a new Broadway show to not go to the pop music. This show actually started at Hartford Stage in my time at Hartford Stage when I was part of their education department. So I got to see it before it hit Broadway. And again, it was just something so new where, one character is playing 20 different roles. And it featured some beautiful music for sopranos, which you don't always get with the new musicals. And it was just, again, hilarious and a lot of fun and a tour de force to watch the quick changes and all of the different characterizations of one talented actor in the lead.
And neat that it started in Hartford, right?
Yeah. And Darko Chesniak won the Tony Award for it. And he is no longer with Hartford Stage, but he also directed Anastasia that started at Hartford Stage and was on Broadway. One of the kindest, greatest leaders that I ever had the pleasure of, he was the leader of the organization, the pleasure of working for. He's a true artist to the core and respects artists, educators, all across the organization. Right. He's a wonderful guy.
All right. And your fifth best musical comedy, Disaster.
This maybe not have been the biggest hit on Broadway, but this opened our 2020 season.
I know, I saw it. It was nutty. It was crazy.
And who knew it was going to be a premonition that's what 2020 would turn into. But for communities, high schools, for other organizations that want to tackle a show, this is music that is accessible to everybody in the audience because it is comprised of pop songs and really crazy moments. You don't need a big budget. The lower your budget is, the better the show is because it's more creativity. and so many great parts and ways to feature your cast. And I had such a blast doing this show at the start of the year at Chestnut Street Playhouse. It was one of the best casts I have ever worked with. Everybody had such fun and such respect for one another that I miss it so much. And I'm glad that that was the start of my 2020, because it leaves me with that.
It was fun.
Great
All
fun.
right, so those are your top 5 musical comedies. And now you and Carly did not conspire together. You never talked to each other about it. But watch what Carly, it's your turn now. Your top 5 musical comedies. Number 1, Mormon again. Carly, why?
I mean, Book of Mormon has a special place in my heart. It was the first Broadway musical I ever saw, which probably is a very, very interesting way to dive into Broadway. But I saw it for my 13th birthday, and it was absolutely hilarious. I mean, you'd think that it was crazy because I probably shouldn't have even been in the theater. Like, I thought it was the funniest thing. Like, I'd seen South Park before, and I'd listened to the music, but something like seeing that sort of thing on a stage, with the, more traditional Broadway music incorporated into it, there was something that just like worked. It worked so well. I love like all the subtle jokes, like, I mean, subtle, but like the song Baptize Me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like every lyric in that song is just perfect. I can't even explain it. It's hilarious. It's well written, and it's done well because it's really raunchy, but I don't think it crosses a line where like you can't watch it and you feel like it's too gross. It's perfect. That's what I'll say.
Right. Because when you get down to it, with all the irreverence, it's really kind of like a friendship show, a buddy show in some ways. There is a compassionate, nice kind of side to it, definitely, that humanizes it. And so I agree with both of you. And you both had that as number 1. And you both had as number 2, Avenue Q. Carly, why did you say Avenue Q?
I mean, Avenue Q is, I think of it actually as a lot like Book of Mormon in that it crosses a lot of lines, but it doesn't go too far where it becomes unwatchable and like it seems like it's too gross or raunchy for Broadway. I saw this one off Broadway because I saw it fairly recently, and I just think, again, it's one that's really funny. This one, it's interesting because although I can't personally relate to a lot of the things, I feel like it's a fairly relatable, like most of it's fairly relatable for a lot of people, and, it's just, I thought it was really funny. I found out about Avenue Q by accident. I was like talking to Alexa and she just accidentally played a song from Avenue Q. It was the song Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. And that's something I like I can relate to that. Yeah, everyone's racist. I talk about that all the time. And I heard it and I'm like, who wrote this? Like, this is genius. And I listened to the whole thing and I just think it's so funny. So yeah, that's why it's number 2.
That's great. And guess what? Guess what your third choice was? Ta-da!
Producers.
That's so funny.
It is.
Yeah. Producers is, I mean, I can say like the same thing about all of them. They're all just hilarious. And this one is, it's racy. It's on the line, but it's just good. You never cringe or think that's too far. I think it's great.
Right. So isn't that interesting? You both had the top 3. And as we go through the list, you'll see that there will be a lot of similarities in your list because, well, first of all, great minds think alike. Knowledgeable minds think alike when you learn about this. But also, there's kind of an understanding as to what the great shows are for the most part. There'll be some disagreements, but you'll notice as we go along, many fewer disagreements than agreements. Okay, Carly, your 4th favorite musical comedy.
Yeah. All right. So Little Shop of Horrors, I've never actually seen on stage, but I've listened to the soundtrack from the Broadway musical and I've seen the movie. And I think when you can tell, like I listened to the soundtrack first, when you can tell that a musical is really funny just by listening to it, it has to be really funny. You know what I mean? This is another one. I mean, I just think it's such a fun show. I mean, there's a giant plant like in the middle of it. Like who thought? It's one of those things where I'm like, who thought of that? It's just so funny. Everything,
Right.
especially when it's supposed to be like scary, because I feel like it's more of a sort of freaky. It's supposed to be kind of freaky,
Right.
scary. Even then, it's just so ridiculous that you have to laugh at like the whole thing.
Right. I mean, it's about a plant that grows and grows and grows. It actually eats people, right?
Yeah.
It's,
And I
I
have
mean,
to
it,
say, the dentist, that's hilarious. Whoever thought of the dentist, oh, that needs a shout out. That's so good. So funny. That made me laugh
right.
out loud.
All right. And your fifth best comedy is,
Mean Girls. I feel like this one isn't, it's newer. It's very new. So it might not be one that you think of, but I saw the Mean Girls movie originally. And that's, a Tina Fey movie, and the musical, the book was written by Tina Fey, or it might have been a collaboration. But I just love her. I love everything she does. Like, I've seen her on SNL. I saw the original Mean Girls movie. I just think it's just so funny. It's her comedy. So like I saw it. I really like. I haven't seen the actual musical, but like I listened to it, and I've seen bootlegs on YouTube. But I just love what she does. So that's why this one made the top 5.
right. It's a hard ticket to get. It's you've got to really wait. It's not on TKTS. It's a tough ticket. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens when Broadway opens again. All right. The next category is top musicals dance. And I think you're going to find some unanimity here too. Number 1 for Lisa is
A Chorus Line. I had to
right.
choose A Chorus Line because this was actually very creative and innovative at the time. Do you know that
Right.
A Chorus Line and Chicago were up for Tonys at the same time?
Mhm.
That's incredible that these two amazing shows with very different approaches were both, and they both have stood the test of time for popularity. But Chorus Line won, and it was like the Hamilton of its time. And I find it funny because Hamilton is in the theater that debuted in, and so it's like,
Oh, is it?
yeah,
Wow.
they invited the original cast of A Chorus Line to the opening of Hamilton on Broadway. But it's a
Wow.
story that was created by the dancers. And it's all about the life of being a Broadway performer. So that just had to be at the top of the list.
And all the dancers are standing there waiting to be interviewed by the director who's seated in the theater, asking each of them very intimate, very psychological questions about their lives and their desires, right? To decide who's going to make the chorus line.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It's a great show.
Yes. Okay. And I barely got a ticket to that. I think it was in the 1970s. It was so hard. And I finally got a seat. I had a girlfriend who knew people on Broadway, and she got me a ticket. But I was at the very end of a row, and I couldn't see the whole chorus line as they was out on the stage. But of course, I went back many times in regional theaters and other summer stock just to watch a chorus line. All right, next, number 2, West Side Story.
West Side Story, again, because the dance was so instrumental to telling the story. The way that they used dance in that story with characters who normally wouldn't be dancing, gang members, dancing in this with beautiful balletic movements. Jerome Robbins was really a genius with his approach to this choreography. The dance is essential to every part of the story, so that's why it had to make the list.
Right. A groundbreaking, beautiful show. And a movie that we talk about later that won an Academy Award.
Yeah, and the remake, Steven Spielberg has already wrapped on a remake. They're just waiting to release it. And I know some people are naysayers. This movie's such a classic and holds a special place in my heart. But anytime any creator is trying to do a story that's important to them, I encourage it and we'll give it a chance. Right. So I'm excited to see it and support some young, new talent. They did a national search to find Maria, and she's a very young, beautiful soprano who's going to be, getting the thrill of a lifetime to play this iconic role. And so I'm more than happy to support it. I can't wait.
Great. All right. And your next best dance, Chicago.
So awesome. Great. This is another one where, again, the dance is essential to telling the story, and that's why it made the list. I don't think there's a better number than Cell Block Tango. That is just the coolest. And I actually really enjoyed the movie version of this too. Right. I think that it had such a smart approach to how to tell the story going into, the mind of how Roxy would see things. And It's just, and I love all the featured women, of course. Like, this is a place where women really get, even though they're playing a bunch of, nasty, merry, murderous, you really get to shine and showcase just the
Yeah.
dynamic energy and talent that women bring to the Broadway stage, and I love it.
Right. So that's Chicago. And third, your fourth best.
Hairspray. Yeah. Again, because the dance is essential to the story. You can't have Hairspray without dance. And I love the subject matter. I love how they use dance and song and music to really tell the story and see how people can really, really connect, no matter what their, what her size is, what somebody's race is, where somebody, like, the music unifies you and connects you to one another. And dance does that as well. And I just think and every song is fantastic in this show too. You're bopping in your seat from the second you get in the theater. So that's definitely got to be on the list.
Exactly. All right. And your last top dance shows, Sweet Charity.
I am not the biggest fan of this show in particular, but the dance in this show is, again, it's the dance that really tells the story. Even for Charity, she's a physical kind of character, and her whole world is tied into physicalness. And the choreography of Bob Fosse in this show was just so wackadoo. The Rich Man's Frug. Have you ever seen this? If anybody's listening and hasn't seen that, you got to YouTube that right now, because that is some crazy stuff, but so creative and just, creating worlds, whole different worlds through a style of movement.
Right. And we got to give a shout out to Gwen Verdon, who was a great Broadway star in that and in Chicago and other shows.
Yeah, and then Shirley MacLaine in the movie, who was phenomenal, right. A phenomenal dancer, a Fosse favorite. I saw Christina Applegate do it on Broadway, and she was terrific too. Actually, really had the persona and was a phenomenal dancer. It's just a really enjoyable night of entertainment.
Okay, and so now we go to Carly's list, and again, amazing. You guys were far apart in place, but not in your mind. So, Carly, your number one show for dance was?
Yeah, so this is one that I haven't seen a lot of these on Broadway. I haven't been around long enough for most of them, but I've seen the movie, I've listened to the soundtrack, and this one I actually watched a short documentary about the people who made it and the dancers in the audition process, and I just love this show because I feel like there's something really cool about a musical that's very simple, like this in Chicago, where there isn't a lot of set, there isn't a lot, and it's just featuring the performers and the dancing. And it's so fun. I love the dances. I actually, after I watched this, I had one stuck in my head and I couldn't get it out. So I learned the entire dance to it just for fun. This was a couple weeks ago. I even bought a gold hat on Amazon, to do the hat stuff. And I love it. If a musical makes me want to learn an entire dance, it's
right.
It's
and Carly did the one dance for us a couple of weeks ago that as she was learning it, it's terrific. And that is one of the best songs ever. And so you're both on the same page with that. Let's go to I wonder what your number two best dance show is, Carly.
That's so crazy. Yeah, so West Side Story is another one where, you can't have the show without dance. That's the essential part of it. And it's the first thing I think of when I think of West Side Story is that first opening scene where they have the two gangs dancing, and it's just so cool, right? Because everything is done through dance. Everything, or most of the story, is just told through the dance, and it's so great. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about these. They're just amazing.
Right. Okay. And guess what your third best dance show is?
Chicago. This is another one. So Chicago I've seen this twice on Broadway. And I haven't seen a lot on Broadway. This one I saw twice because last time we were in New York, which feels like so long ago, we got to see, or I had a choice for what I was going to see the last day. And I knew I wanted to see Chicago again. It's that, enticing, it draws you in. The dance is just so cool. I love Fosse. I like Cabaret too, but that's the other one I've seen the movie for and listened to. But the dance in Chicago is just so cool. Like, I love how they move. I love how it tells the story. I love how simple it is. And that's like, it's just featuring the dance. There isn't a lot of set, there isn't a lot of costume. It's just them, the performers dancing. It's so cool.
Right. Great. All right. And your fourth best dance is?
Newsies. Okay. I saw the, what's it called? The pro shot for Newsies on Disney Plus. As soon as I got Disney Plus, I watched it. And it's one of those, it's just so, I love the dancing. I mean, I don't think Newsies is one of the best musicals. I didn't like a lot of it, like a lot of the songs. They're so, but the dancing is just so good. I feel like this is such an underrated musical. No one talks about it a lot because it's not really a classic, but it's really fun to watch. It's one of the most fun musicals to watch.
Good. All right. And your fifth best dancing. Now, this is really a movie musical, but we said Broadway or movies, Singing in the Rain.
Hmm. Yeah, so I've seen the movie for this one, and I mean, I've reenacted him dancing around in the rain so many times, so I just felt like it had to make the list for that reason. So, and I love
Okay.
just the
That's
style.
that's an iconic scene from the movie. Fabulous show, fabulous movie. And you created the next category, you created, Carly. So I want you to explain what you meant. Lisa understood it. You both have shows on there. Top theater experiences. What did you mean by that when you created that category?
Um, just when you, it's hard to explain, but it's just talking about when you go into a theater and there's just something that you see that's just so amazing that like it's something else where you have to see it in theater. You can't just get that feeling or that experience from listening to it or watching the movie. There's something special that they do on the stage in the theater that, makes the show so great.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Lisa's rankings for top theater experiences. So obviously, Lisa, you understood those categories and you picked the first one.
The Lion King. This was, they did Beauty and the Beast prior to Disney bringing Lion King to Broadway. And when they did Beauty and the Beast, which was also well done, they wanted to be very faithful to the movie and recreate those moments from the movie on stage. With The Lion King, they took everything out of the box and used the amazing, innovative vision of Julie Taymor to tell the story in a very different way, using puppets that would come through the audience and the way that they would create a character with both human and these other elements that were very theatrical. It's something that an experience in the theater you're never going to forget, and it'll be a totally different experience than the movie.
Okay. And that was so unusual when the actors in their amazing costumes of animals and came down these aisles, right? That was just so innovative, so new. Right. Oh, you're number two after Lion King.
I have actually never seen this on Broadway because it's been around for so long. Nobody ever wants to go because they've already seen it. And I'm the only one who hasn't seen it. But when it did come out, it was such a sensation to have candelabras from the floor and to have a chandelier coming down and the gigantic grand sets and a giant ensemble and the incredible star power of Michael Crawford in a role that, he just made iconic. So that's another experience that, this is forever going to be part of musical theater. It's the longest running show in history and shows no signs of slowing down until COVID stopped it in its tracks.
Right.
But yeah, and I will see it. I will see it when it comes back.
Okay. And then your number three theater experience.
Miss Saigon, again, a sweeping, very dramatic tale. I mean, you have a helicopter on stage.
Right. On stage, right.
The story is just so heart-wrenching also that it's something that, it's bringing you into a totally different world. And that's why I had to make the list.
It was a spectacle and as well as a very moving story. So you're right. Your next best experience in the theater?
Again, totally different. And this is a show that it works wonderfully with high school groups and community theaters for sure. It was created by the group of actors who were in the original roles. Also, it was kind of a collaborative project, but there's so much improvisation that happens, and they bring audience members or celebrity guests up onto the stage to be guest spellers in the show. And for that to happen on a Broadway stage, super innovative and just a lot of fun. This could have made the list of comedies too, but I tried to share the love to highlight as many shows as possible. So, I'm sticking it on this list because it's, if you experience it, you can see it 10 times, which I have in various theaters, and it's always a different show. And I think it's terrific.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Yeah. Next, your final number 5 of your top theater experience.
This show has such a tragic beginning because Jonathan Larson died of a brain aneurysm the night before it opened on Broadway. It was a sensation when it was off Broadway, but the night before it opened, he tragically, randomly, terribly, devastatingly passed away. And then this show blew up Broadway like before Hamilton. Nothing has blown up Broadway like this show did. All of these unknown actors became gigantic powerhouse stars. And this show is so special to so many people because it was very different than anything you'd ever seen before.
Right.
And the representation and the plight of young people and young artists, and it just was a very, very special moment in history when this show came out. It really did a lot of great things for Broadway.
Okay, so now Carly's list of top theater experiences. Carly.
Yeah, so I feel like this isn't one that you'd necessarily expect because it doesn't seem like it does that much in the theater, but it's one of the few Broadway shows I've seen on Broadway, and there's something really special about Hamilton. I mean, it really deserves all the fame that it has, all the popularity, because I'd listened to it. I knew every word of the show when I went to see it, but something about seeing it was like a whole other experience. You know, the way that they had the choreography, the way they had the actors moving around, the way the stage moved, the way everything moved. It turned something into something else. Like, I can't even explain it, but they're painting this scene, the 1700s, and they have people who look nothing like what the people looked like. They have sets that look nothing like what it looked like or was supposed to look like. And something about what they did just made it feel so real. And I'm not an emotional person. I don't get emotional very easily. And I got so emotional watching that. So I just think it's something else. It's such an incredible musical.
Okay. Next show.
Lion King. Yeah, Lion King has to make the list. I would have put it number 1 if I hadn't been so emotional watching Hamilton. But, you can't say enough about it, right? You have the huge, puppets moving through the audience and on the stage, and the music is so beautiful, and everything put together just makes it an incredible experience. This was really fun to watch.
And your next show, Experience in the Theater.
I know. I think a lot of these for theater experiences I put on here just because of the emotions and just how well I think they did at showing different things. I think Book of Mormon, it was so you can't see anything like Book of Mormon. There's nothing like Book of Mormon. There's never been anything like Book of Mormon. But it's just so crazy. They managed to make it sometimes like a traditional Broadway musical, when they have Turn It Off and the tap number and the, sparkles, and sometimes it's completely different. Like, I can't even describe the scene that I'm thinking of, but it's something that you'd never imagine in traditional theater. And it was just so different. I don't even know what to say about it, and I just loved seeing it. You have to see it in theater to really
right. And you have only 4 on this list, so your last one for theater experiences.
Aladdin. This was such a fun one to see. So this was I haven't seen that many things in theater or on Broadway, so it was hard to make this list. But Aladdin has to make the list. If you've seen it, it's just. I mean, when they get to Friend Like Me, they pull out all the stops. They do everything, and it was just so cool. There's things, coming up from, the stage, and there's lights everywhere, and there's all these different, Disney references in that song, and all these different costumes, and it's so cool to see. You have to see that one in person to really get the experience. Yeah.
It's not just for kids, it's a very enjoyable show for
Yeah.
anyone.
I think a lot of I think Disney musicals are timeless. Like I almost made a category just for Disney musicals, and they're so, because you can always enjoy Disney at all ages, in my opinion.
All right, the fourth category that you created, Carly, was top tearjerkers, or shows that lead you to have an emotion or a tear. So let's go, Lisa. Your first number one was
Les Miserables, or Les Mis, as everybody calls it. I saw this. It was one of the first Broadway shows that I saw, actually, with my high school. And I just remember sitting in the balcony, and when, spoiler alert, when Eponine dies, you're crushed and devastated. When she sings On My Own, and then she dies in his arms, you're like, oh my gosh. When little Gavroche gets it. And then at the end, there's a line that still is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard on a Broadway stage. To love another person is to see the face of God. Is there a more beautiful lyric than that? I cried the whole time. I usually cry as soon as a Broadway show starts, just because I'm so excited. But that was one that just really, I was totally invested in the story and the music, and it's going to be a classic forever.
Right. Okay, number two.
This one's personal to me because I just had the honor and privilege to play Diana in Next to Normal. And it's just, the storyline is so heartbreaking about this woman who is dealing with, well, I don't want to give anything away if people haven't seen it or whatever, but she's dealing with a lot of mental health issues that are triggered by a devastating loss that she has in her family. And it just, the awful, things that everybody's grappling with, from them all dealing with this horrible tragedy that happens. The music is absolutely sensational and really heartfelt. And if you feel nothing seeing this musical, I don't know what.
Okay. And your next one.
Dear Evan Hansen, I think this was, the music is fantastic. I think a lot of young people in particular really connect to Evan Hansen's feeling of not belonging. And he just wants so desperately to belong and be important to someone that he ends up fabricating a story about another teen's suicide and that he was his best friend. And, there's a lot of whatever issues people may have with the storyline. And I have some issues with the storyline. The emotion that Ben Platt, in particular, if you listen to the soundtrack, what he brings to this, his voice creates so much nuance with every single syllable that he sings that you can't help but be moved.
Right. And your next emotional show was?
Again, Miss Saigon. This made my other list for theater, the spectacles there, the theater experience. But again, the heartfelt music and the story of Kim and what she's willing to sacrifice in this show for her son is, you can't not be moved. And she has some really powerful emotional music that I just love.
Right.
And Lea Salonga, who originated this role, is like a legit goddess. She played a goddess on the side, so that's actually true. But she's just an incredible vocalist.
She's wonderful, yeah. And your last tearjerker.
This is not a super well-known show. It didn't last very long. We actually did this show at the Playhouse, and I loved our more intimate production even more than the Broadway production because of that intimacy and how close it was. And we had Eden Castile, who was phenomenal in the leading role. But Kelly O'Hara, who did it on Broadway, is my favorite soprano. I just think she's amazing. And it's so heartfelt. It takes a story, of this woman who discovers love, like true love later in life, but then is not willing to sacrifice everybody else's happiness for her own. And the music, this is some of Jason Robert Brown's most complex, challenging, and gorgeous, lush scores.
So this is another interesting concept. This was a movie first, and then it became a Broadway show. More often, you have an original Broadway musical, and then they make a movie out of it. So this was the other way around, right?
Yeah, there's a big trend of that on Broadway now, in fact. But this was, starting with the book, then they made it a movie, then it's tweaked each time from the book, which I did not enjoy the book. I enjoyed the movie more than the book, and I enjoyed the musical more than the movie. So
Okay. All right. Now we have Carly's top tearjerkers. Here we go. There you go again, Carly, with your
I
Hamilton.
know. I know. Hamilton is just, again, I don't know what it is because the story is not particularly sad, but there's something about how they make you feel so invested in it that it's the only time I think I've ever cried watching a movie or a musical ever.
Wow.
So I just
Okay.
had to put it in number one, right? Because it's the tearjerker category. I mean, I don't cry easily. Most people will cry at a lot of things that I don't cry for,
Right.
but this is just there's something about it. Only time I've cried in the theater or watching a movie at home. So yeah.
Okay.
I've seen it like
Next
6 times.
one.
I still cry.
Really?
Yeah. So this is one that I saw in theater, and I'd also sung well, not well. I am but in a I did singing lessons and I was given You'll Never Walk Alone as a song to work on my higher notes, and I couldn't sing the song, but it's such a beautiful song. You know, like I couldn't sing it, but it was so great, and like seeing it in person, it was just it's so sad to watch, you know, and it's such a that moment just makes it just makes this category. Didn't
Right.
cry though, but I never cry, so
Okay,
anyway.
the next one. Oh, and I'm just showing here different variations. So I believe this one I showed it first was the original in the Majestic Theater when it first opened many, many years ago. And now is another revival of it and another yet movie musical with Gordon McRae and Shirley Jones, who did a lot of the Rodgers and Hammerstein movies that were brought from Broadway. So just wanted to show that. And your next tearjerker, Carly.
Fun Home. So I haven't seen Fun Home on Broadway, but I did listen to the soundtrack, and I mean the whole story is just it's so sad. I don't know, but it's done so well. You know, I love how there's a mix of just songs and then just dialogue to music. I don't know what that's called. There's a word for it. But there's just there's so much going on, but it's told in such a simple way. It's done and I can tell just from listening to it. And I think that there's something really nice about what they did, but it is such a it's a really sad story and it really pulls a tear.
People may not be aware that fun home really refers to a funeral home, right?
Right. Yeah. So no, it's about I don't know if I should say I don't want to spoil anything, but I mean it's about this woman and her growing up and coming to terms with her sexuality and her family and well, mostly her dad and it's just such a I feel like it's
Yeah,
also one of those stories where a lot of people can relate to different aspects which can make it more emotional. Like I find especially like being a teenager, stories about people growing up, I find things that I can relate to and
right.
it just makes them more emotional. So yeah,
Okay, your next tearjerker.
dear Evan Hansen. Yeah, so this kind of going off of what I was saying, you know, musicals that this is another musical that kind of talks about growing up, even though it focuses on his one experience as a teenager. But I think it plays on a lot of the emotions that you feel being a teenager. And the music is I love the music. This is not I usually don't like the newer musicals and like the pop music style. I tend to like a more traditional like, musical theater style, although that changes. But this is one where I just love every single song with like maybe two exceptions. But I love like the majority of the songs are just so good and the story it makes you feel so many different things, you know, you feel sad, you feel happy, and I just think it's a really great but emotional musical.
Okay, and your next one.
Les Mis. Yeah, so
Yeah,
okay, I didn't like Les Mis very much to be honest. I know everyone loves it. I mean, it wasn't my favorite. I like it. It wasn't my favorites, but I felt like it's still a sad story. I mean, I only didn't like it because I already knew what was going to happen, and so I had already committed myself to not sympathizing with the characters, knowing everything that was about to go wrong. But I just think you can't have the cheer jerker category without putting in Les Mis. It's such a sad story But it's so good, you know.
Okay. And so you created the next category, Carl. You called jukebox musicals. And what are they? And then we'll get
All
Lisa's.
right. So jukebox musicals are musicals that are created using songs that are already written. So they tell a story using already written songs. A
I
lot of
got it.
times they'll feature one artist or um, a new usually they feature like one artist. A lot of them are biographical, although that might be its own category, but I kind of clump them in for jukebox
Okay.
musicals.
All right. Let's start with Lisa's top jukebox musicals. Lisa?
Jersey Boys, Frankie Valli. I saw this show in the Bushnell Theater in Connecticut. I sat in the very back row of the entire gigantic Bushnell, and still the show had such a great impact because the megawatt talent that was on stage was just phenomenal. The music is great. The story really moved, and I think they told it in an innovative way. And I just loved the slickness of the old style choreography. But this one is still running strong because if you cast it with the phenomenal talent that's required, the show is just so great.
Amazing how many great voices they get to do these shows. It's terrific.
Absolutely.
Okay, and your next show.
Rock of Ages. Again, just a bunch of 80s rock. It's a great show that could be done in like a community setting, but on Broadway, it's just, a fun time. They actually reimagined it and have it running now like in an actual bar. Like they have it in a kind of a new innovative staging that they're doing for it. And fun fact, I have a high school friend named Abe Calamag, who I think has seen this show like over, like almost like 1,000 times. Like he just sees it all over the world.
Wow.
That's one of my favorites. He was featured in a bunch of articles. I have to give him a shout out, but it's fun.
Yeah. Your next one, Smokey Joe's Cafe.
The Songs of Lieber and Stoller. I was lucky enough to do this show at the Ivoryton Playhouse. So I know it a little better than even just listening to the soundtrack, and just hit after hit after hit. This show is just a lot of fun and a great way to feature a lot of talent, and it's a great evening of theater.
All right, Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia is interesting because they take the songs and really created an original storyline around the inspiration of the music. And again, I love shows that feature a lot of strong leading female characters. And this one actually has leading female characters over 40. Who knew such a thing existed? So
Right.
It's a really fun show.
And Meryl Streep played the mother in the movie of it, right?
You don't need to talk about that.
You didn't like the movie.
Not so. Pierce Brosnan is amazing, but he should never sing again.
Okay.
Please don't.
And your last jukebox musical, Motown.
Motown was like a sleeper hit on Broadway. This show just sold tickets like crazy. And again, if you feature phenomenal talent, people are going to come and buy a ticket.
Right,
and that's what the show did. Hit after hit after hit. The music is just sensational.
Okay. All right. Carla, your turn. Your top jukebox musicals.
Okay, so Moulin Rouge is a show that I was not familiar with until recently. I have not seen it, but listening to the soundtrack was just the most fun thing because I haven't seen that many jukebox musicals. I haven't listened to that many, but usually they feature songs that are older. And Moulin Rouge, I mean, it's like the music is from that like time frame where I knew every single song, and that's so exciting to listen to a musical because it never happens for me. Listen to a musical and you know every single song, and I could sing along to the whole thing, even though they like mix things together. And I think it's so innovative because they mix different songs together, they change things up, and I just think it's the most fun soundtrack like ever.
Right. So that show was a big hit on Broadway when things closed down. We're going to have to get to see it when they open up again. Your next, also, Jersey Boys.
Yeah, Jersey Boys is another one. I really love the soundtrack to this one. It's another one I haven't seen. But again, I feel like I'm judging on the music, and the music is just great. I mean, it's already been talked about, but I thought it was really fun to do again.
And your next show, what is this? Jagged Little Pill.
All right, so this is one. I feel like a lot of these are new ones that I didn't know about until recently. But this is another soundtrack that I listened to, and I also read a lot about the story. It's about this mom and a family, and it just talks about real life using music. It features Alanis Morissette. I don't know if I say her name right. Alanis. I don't know, but
Alanis Morissette,
Alanis.
90s music. Yes.
Yeah, I like. I mean, I'd never heard about her music before, which I mean, I probably heard some of it, but it's not really my time period. I wasn't alive, but I just listened to it and in context with this, read about it in context with the story, and it's so great. I mean, there's a cover of Head Over Feet, and I don't know, I listened to it and it made me feel emotions. I don't know. It was just really good. I loved
What
it.
do you think of that, Lisa? Did you know that show at all?
I do. It's very new. And the lead actress in this is phenomenal. Her voice is just incredible. They did what people can probably look up is they did performances on like the Tonight Show and like the nighttime talk show. So check it out. She's absolutely phenomenal. The whole cast is really phenomenal. But yeah, I love the music of Alanis Morissette. And I think it's really interesting that, again, they created an original story using the inspiration of the music.
Right,
And I
right.
think that's very cool.
Right. And Carly, your last show again,
Mamma Mia. Yeah, this is another one. I saw this one. I didn't see it on Broadway, but I saw this, and it's just so fun. Like, I love, they create an original story using music that's already created, and I love 80s music and 70s music. I love like just that era from like 1970 to 1989. And so, the album music is just great. I mean, it was so fun. And there's a part where they come up on stage with like their costumes, the like bootleg, pants, and it's all sparkly. And I just thought, this is great. Like, this right here is just so fun. It's so amazing. So yeah.
Right. Okay, the next category are top movie musicals. Lisa, you're on. You're number one.
Singing in the Rain has to be the top of the list because, again, this was not a Broadway show first. This was created for the screen, which is why it tops the list here. And Gene Kelly was just a phenomenal choreographer. He said his Singing in the Rain dance was actually one of the easiest ones he ever created. He did it like in an afternoon. And it's such a classic because it's about the emotion. But I love this movie start to finish. My kids grew up watching this movie. It's still one of my daughter Sophia's, my 21-year-old daughter Sophia's favorite movies. So it'll always be near and dear to my heart, but it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, and you read about the stories about Debbie Reynolds learning how to dance. And I read that Gene Kelly was making her cry.
He was not very nice to her at all because she had no experience. He's like, why didn't you hire a dancer to be the dancer? And here she is, this fresh-faced young kid, and she was devastated. And I guess she was on the lot in Hollywood and saw Fred Astaire practicing and getting frustrated when he couldn't get a move. And she's like, well, if Fred Astaire was one of the greatest dancers alive gets frustrated, I guess I shouldn't feel so bad. And they struck up a kinship, and he actually helped her with some of her moves. And, this girl can fake it till she makes it. She sure did. She kept right up with these two absolute legends. Right. And ultimately it's a classic. And she did it. She did the job. So there.
Right.
West Side Story, again. The movie is actually quite different than the stage version. In the stage version, they have the Officer Krupke scene later in Act 2, and Cool is where Officer Krupke is in the movie because they wanted some comic relief because it's such a heavy story to be sitting there for. But in the movie, it has that dramatic arc, and I love that. I love that the story really builds in intensity, where it starts where you're like, oh, these are just high school kids, and then before you know it, they're all in tragedy, and they need to figure out their lives. But this was innovative in the choreography and what they put up there on the screen. It's too bad Natalie Wood did not sing in that movie. And that's why, again, I'm looking forward to the remake where it's the actual talent really singing and doing everything. Right. The representation.
Yeah. So many of the great movies, I think of My Fair Lady, didn't make your list. It won the Academy Award, but in that show, they didn't get Julie Andrews to reprise her Broadway role. They got someone else. Audrey Hepburn, right.
Yeah, when we get to my list, I'll tell you a fun story about that. Great part of pop culture. This show, the movie is fantastic, even though all of them are like 30 plus years old playing high schoolers. But I mean, how do you deny the talent that is John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John is an icon in pop music. So this movie is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And Carly and I and her mom and her brother, we've gone to several of these sing-alongs in the movie theaters, where they would play Grease or Sound of Music, and you can sing along and shout at the top of your lungs, and they put the words on the screen. Have you done any of those? They are so much fun.
That's my living room every night.
Great. Here's your next great movie.
Judy Garland is my favorite performer of all time. I'm like, you can't go wrong with a Judy song. That's a thing that I always say. And this was just pure magic. They actually wanted to cut Somewhere Over the Rainbow. They thought it didn't forward the story enough. Can you imagine Somewhere Over the Rainbow not being a part of everybody's childhood? And she's just spectacular in this movie. It was so creative. And I think everybody has ties and memory to childhood when they think about this movie.
It was the first movie I was taken to see, and I was very young, and it was frightening for me. I was frightened, but I loved it, and I went back again and again.
That's most childhood stories, though. If you think about the old, even the, old tales like Hansel and Gretel, there's a witch that wants to eat them in the woods.
Right.
And Snow White, the stepmother wants to cut her heart out. Like Harry Potter, his parents are killed, and the world's worst wizard is trying to get him. Kids in peril are part of most childhood stories. Because that's how you relate and see how resilience and grit gets you through life.
And Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. Interesting that you bring up My Fair Lady, because I chose Mary Poppins because, again, it was original for the screen and just pure magic, right? It was the screen debut of the fabulous Julie Andrews, who played Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady on Broadway. When they wanted to make a film about it, they said, oh no, we need a star. Audrey Hepburn thought that Julie Andrews should play the part. And Julie Andrews was like, if they don't cast you, they'll cast somebody else. So just go ahead. I understand. Well, lo and behold, Miss Julie Andrews gets cast in Mary Poppins. Both of them are up for Academy Awards. Julie Andrews won. So
yes.
could have created a star and had an award for their movie, probably, because her talent is so undeniable.
Right.
It created the opportunity for the world to have Julie Andrews forever as our Mary Poppins.
Right. I've heard that story too, and it was quite an interesting coincidence that particular year. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And here again is just another. The movies have many different posters. Broadway shows tend to try to keep one iconic scene as their playbill or as their poster, but the movies will have more than that. So here's another poster from the movie with Julie Andrews. And now Carly's list of the top movie musicals.
Yeah. So Hairspray is just one that has sentimental value to me, because this is one of the first movie musicals that I remember watching, and I think I probably ruined this CD. I watched it so many times when I was like really little. Another John Travolta magic moment in this one, and I just think it's so well done. I don't know how other people feel about it, and I don't care. I watched this so much when I was little. I loved everything about it. I mean, it was just, there's something so great about it. The songs are all amazing, and yeah. Just really enjoyed this.
Okay, your next one, Little Shop of Horrors. We talked about the show, now the movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have not seen Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway, right? So this is like the only time I've seen the full thing all done out. And I put Little Shop of Horrors made it this high on the list purely because of oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the names, but the dentist and the that one dentist scene. I can't remember the names of the actors. It's like
Dick Martin.
Yeah.
Steve Martin in the movie.
Steve Martin.
All right, there's
Ellen Green, Rick Moranis,
and then Bill Murray, I think.
Bill Murray. Now that character, Carly, none of those. That character's not in the script version at all.
I know.
Bill Murray. And it ends totally different too. The ending is totally different in the movie than it is on stage.
Yeah. No, I like to read the Wikipedia pages, the synopses for all the stage version, the movie version. So I know it's different, but that's why the movie makes it so high, for that Bill Murray and Steve Martin scene. That made the movie for me. Everything else was, I could have listened to the soundtrack. That made the movie for me.
Okay. And of course, Grease.
Yeah, Grease is another one that I watched a lot when I was younger. Um, and I just, yeah, John Travolta. I mean, he just, if he's in it, it's good. But it was just such a fun movie. I think it's a classic, really. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of the movies where the soundtrack for the movie is almost better than the Broadway soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather listen to that because I just feel like it's so like it's not unique. It's the same songs, but the way they do it is just really great in on its own.
Right. Well, I think that's one example where the movie is still considered greater than the Broadway productions of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right, Chicago.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this won the Academy Award. I might be wrong,
It did.
but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and I think Lisa, you mentioned it, but the way that they tell the story in the movie is just really great. It's so innovative. You know how they have like a back and forth between these cabaret scenes and the story, and I just think they adapted to the screen really well. You know, and Bob Fosse.
Okay. Oklahoma.
Again, a movie that I watched. Most of these are movies I just watched a ton when I was really little, and so they, they're just the first things that I thought of. I love them so much. But this one, I've watched it so many times, and it's an older movie. I don't always like the older movies because I don't know, camera quality. I'm not used to it. I don't like it. But this is just so good. I love the actors and the actresses. I love how they did it. I think it's done so well, and it's old. And I don't usually like old movies. I don't know. It's just really great.
Right.
I don't have a lot to say about most of these. Just they're great.
And there's that same team of Gordon McRae and Shirley Jones who did Carousel, and became famous portraying these Rodgers and Hammerstein stars. And again, here's another poster of the movie 50th anniversary edition. And now your last top movie musical.
Yeah, so Sound of Music is once again a movie that I watched over and over again as a child. That was one of the few that I couldn't get enough of. And I mean, it's just so, the music is good, everything's great. This is Julie Andrews too, right? Yeah, I'm not mixing that up.
Yes.
Am I? Yeah, okay. Sometimes I mix people up. But again, Julie Andrews is in it, and Julie Andrews is just amazing. And that's all I can say. I think it's great. It's such a good movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. So, like all of these are.
All right, the next category. Between 1930 and 1960, you created a category. What are the top shows then? Oh, that's another version of the movie Sound of Music. All right, Lisa, anything goes.
Yeah, I'll just zip through these because I know these next lists are pretty long. But these are in, since it's 30s to the 60s, I did these chronologically. It was really hard to whittle down these lists, but anything goes, just the music of Cole Porter, all of these songs are absolute hits. Right. So that had to be on the list.
Yeah. If you haven't heard Cole Porter, you're missing out in life.
Absolutely.
Porgy and Bess, George Gershwin.
Which was an amazing opera, sweeping, beautiful Gershwin score, and a chance to feature Black talent on the stage. This absolutely has to make the list because it was an important contribution to Broadway.
Audra McDonald, who cannot do anything wrong on the stage or the screen. She wins a Tony every time she appears. She's a fabulous actress and singer.
Yeah, and "Summertime" is one of the most beautiful songs ever written, and it's great.
All right, Oklahoma, we already talked about it. How innovative it was with the dance.
Totally innovative, and one of the classics. Again, every song is fantastic. It's also still my father's favorite musical, so it holds a special place in my heart.
Right, and the movie, as Carly said, was also great.
Yeah.
And again, West Side Story.
West Side Story has to be there. The combination of Stephen Sondheim's lyrics and Leonard Bernstein's amazing kinetic score can't possibly be left off any best list.
Right. And, of course, The Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music. Yeah. Again, these songs all, like even like Carly said, at her young age, when all of this came out, she never heard of it. And yet it's a part of everybody's childhood, kind of like The Wizard of Oz, like Follow the Yellow. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows Doe, a deer. Like, oh, yeah, that's from The Sound of Music. It just creates an instant sense memory when you think of this beautiful score.
Okay. And Gypsy.
Was this on mine?
I think that's Carly.
No, that was mine.
Carly, your top 1930, 1960 musicals.
Yeah.
Music. Gypsy.
Gypsy, so yeah, we should go quickly. I'm not going to say too much, but Gypsy is one that I've only heard the soundtrack of, but as soon as I heard it, I think as soon as I heard the orchestrations in the beginning, the overture, I loved it. Like, I listened to it and I was like, this sounds really great. I think every single song in that musical is just really good, and I loved it instantly, which is pretty rare, so made number one.
I saw Ethel Merman in Gypsy on Broadway in 1959. She was an amazing, iconic star. There she is in the playbill. And your next show is?
Anything goes. So this one was already talked about. It's another one where every single song is really great. Every single song is a hit. It's a bop. All right. Guys and Dolls. Guys and Dolls is one that's it's another one that I watched when I was really little, and I've always loved it. And this was one that I was in children's theater, and I got to play Adelaide, which was such an interesting, it was such a fun part to play. I got to do the voice, and I think this is just, it's an oldie but a goodie. It's so good. The music is just really great, and it has some really beautiful songs in it. Yeah.
Right. I love that show, and it's probably together with Mormon, it's probably one of my top shows. All right, next, Oklahoma also.
Yeah, I already talked about this when I talked about the movie.
Right.
But every song is good. Movie is great.
And then also Sound of Music.
Yeah, this is
the
again
playbill of the original Sound of Music Broadway show, the Oscar Hammerstein and Richard Rodgers show, and that's Mary Martin.
Mary Martin.
She was a very famous. She played Peter Pan also. Lisa, you must be aware of that.
Absolutely. Yep.
She was a wonderful Broadway actress, and of course, when they made the movie, she was probably too old anyway, right? And but that's the original playbill from the Lunt-Fontanne Theater with Mary Martin. Okay, Carly, your next one. Top music.
So Annie Get Your Gun is one that I've only seen the movie and listened to the soundtrack for, but I just think there's so many classics from this, like so many songs that and you don't necessarily know where they're from, but you've heard them. You've heard, like, there's a few of them, and for that reason I thought it should make the list.
Okay, and now that's another one to show you the different. That might be the original. Again, Ethel Merman was in Annie Get Your Gun originally. Now Betty Hutton came along with another version of it. And I saw it with Bernadette Peters back about 20 years ago at the Marquis Theater, where the Marriott Hotel is. And she did a very popular rendition of Annie Get Your Gun. So you can see how revivals become very important. All right, the next group are the top music from 1960 to 1990. Lisa.
All right. I don't know if you included my whole list. This was such a great period for musical theater that cutting down this list was so difficult and so impossible that I just was like, okay, here's 10 that are fabulous that I think people will be most familiar with. Some personal favorites I may have axed, but these are all ones that I chose. And Cabaret has to be there. Again, this music really told the story. And it's a dark story, but it humanizes it humanizes it. So, when you hear this, in Cabaret, it's not in the movie. The Herr Schultz and Fraulein Schneider storyline is horribly not in the amazing movie that they made. They changed those characters to be this young couple, but in the actual story, it really is the heart of this play, and it's all the music is great.
Hair.
Again, all the music in this is, like you said, Carly, it's a bop. Like every single song is spectacular, and it was really revolutionary at the time. And a lot of these songs were played on the radio. It was a popular soundtrack.
Godspell.
This is, I have done this show. And so while I'm not really crazy about this wackadoo 70s format of doing telling the story, it's a little out there at some points. The music is great. Every single song is incredible. Jesus Christ Superstar is, in my opinion, Andrew Lloyd Webber's best soundtrack. This thing is amazing. It was written to be a concert and then became a play. And I think that's why the soundtrack is so amazing, because it was written to be experienced through listening. Annie, again, a part of everybody's childhood. This show came out and little girls everywhere fell in love with theater. And for that alone, this needs to be on the list, because it's
absolutely. And that shows, Lisa and Carly, that show started at the Goodspeed Opera House in East Haddam, Connecticut.
Absolutely.
And Carly, your mom, and your auntie Marjorie, we went to see it at least once when it originated at that theater, and then it went on to Broadway, and it was a huge, huge hit. Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd. It's just a perfect musical. It's amazing how he uses music to tell this story, and it's just fantastic. I love this show.
Okay. And
Les Mis, can't be denied. It was amazing when it came out at the time. It's really, truly an opera. The whole thing is sung through, and so that ambitious score is just an absolute iconic one.
Right. Oh, Dreamgirls. Was that what brought Jennifer Hudson to popularity?
This is where she won her Academy Award, yes, for the movie version. But this show, again, when you feature amazing talent like Dreamgirls did, it's like it was just a huge sensation, and incredible music featuring incredible talent. So it had to be part of my list. Little shout out to Carly's favorites. Every single song is amazing in this. I was lucky to be a part of this show back in my little grammar school days. I was one of the chorus girls, and I just have such fond memories of the show. I love the show and all the music in it.
And finally, Chess, which nobody really knows much about.
Chess, because the book of the musical, I've never seen it because it didn't last very long, and I hear the book is pretty clunky and terrible, but the music in this show is amazing. And everybody knows that song, One Night in Bangkok Makes Our Heart. Like, everybody knows that song. That's from Chess. Beautiful, beautiful music. And if you get a chance to listen to the soundtrack, there's going to be something that you really enjoy on this. It has a little something for everybody. It's great.
Okay, now Carly's list from 1960 to 1990, Chicago.
I find it interesting, actually, because I put Chicago as number one. You had Cabaret as your first. But Chicago is one, again, I've seen it twice on Broadway. This is the one I've seen the most. I mean, I just think it's so great. And I've sing these songs around the house all the time. And it's just it's good. I don't know. Can't say anything else.
And Annie, there you go.
Yeah, you mentioned this, but I think Annie is part of everybody's childhood. Mm-hmm. This is another one I've seen, not on Broadway, but
The Wiz.
Uh-oh, did Carly freeze?
Oh, I don't know.
Can you still hear me, Sheila?
Yes.
Oh, no. She's back. You froze
right.
for me, Carly.
Yeah, so The Wiz is one that I don't think people talk about enough, but I got into this one recently, and I listen to this everywhere. This is what I play when I'm going to go for a walk, because I mean, it's so catchy. It's just so fun to just dance around to. Yeah. And it's a completely different style than The Wizard of Oz.
A chorus line.
Chorus line. I love the songs from a chorus line. I love one. I hope I get it. I love everything. Everything is so good. I mean, those are the big ones, or some of the big ones. But Yeah, I think this is another really good one.
And of
And
course, as Lisa said, Les Mis. That
yeah,
has
this
to
makes
be on the
everyone's
list.
list as well. Even though it's not one of my favorites, you can't deny that the music is just really, you know, incredible and quite different, in my opinion.
And finally, your last one, Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, I love it's weird because the first time I listened to Phantom, I thought all the songs sounded the same. And then I kept listening to Phantom, and I think it's one of the most beautiful scores. It almost makes you emotional just listening to the orchestrations. It's just such a pretty song. Like it's all pretty songs. I don't know.
Right. All right. And now the top music between 1990 and 2020. Lisa, interesting. A new show here. Once on this island.
Well, the one that was most recent was a revival of the original, which was out in 1990. And this is Aarons and Flaherty. So to hear them do such vastly different stuff, they're really talented composers. And Once on This Island is basically like the island version of The Little Mermaid. The actual Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid, it does not have a happy ending, kids. And that's what this show, the storyline kind of represents. But the music is phenomenal. It's just a tremendous accomplishment to have this be part of musical theater. It's amazing. This is one of my very favorite shows, and this is a show that I so desperately want to bring to Chestnut Street Playhouse. I just find this story, a classic childhood story, is updated so beautifully by Meredith Willson with the music that adds to the story. It makes it a little more adult, focusing on the adult relationships while still featuring Mary Lennox as the lead character. But I love, I think this score is one of the best. The Who's Tommy? Like one of the first rock musicals. This is another great one. And the soundtrack on its own is something that can, tell you the story.
Wicked.
Wicked, phenomenal. Again, this is based on the book, of course, but it's taking characters that you're kind of familiar with from The Wizard of Oz and totally blowing your mind with a new story and seeing them in a different way. And the music is phenomenal. The Color Purple. I don't know how you can hear Cynthia Erivo. And again, that's the revival version, the newest one, Cynthia Erivo, who won the Tony Award over Philippa Sue in Hamilton, because Cynthia Erivo is one of the most stunning talents to come to Broadway in the last 10 years. And Jennifer Hudson also was in this on Broadway, and she's fantastic. But to tell the story with powerful music and showcase amazing female talent, sign me up. Put me down. I'm a fan there. I'm first to buy a ticket. I love it. Spring Awakening was revolutionary in the approach to the show, using modern pop music, but setting it in like old-timey Germany. So they talk very colloquially, but sing with the teenage passion that we all know and connect to. Fantastic score. Leah Michele and Jonathan Groff became stars because of this show. In the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who, everybody celebrates Hamilton, but this show, he actually went to Wesleyan University and started writing that show during his time at Wesleyan University in the early workshops. Then it went to the Eugene O'Neill and had some further development. So there's a lot of ties to Connecticut in the development of this with his fabulous show. I can't wait to see the movie. Anthony Ramos, who plays Lawrence and Philip in Hamilton, is playing the lead role that Lin-Manuel originated, and he's going to be a superstar after this movie comes out. It's fantastic. If you haven't heard it and you're a fan of Hamilton, check out In the Heights. You won't be sorry.
I saw it on Broadway and it was great. Waitress.
I love this. I hope Sarah Bareilles writes more musicals, because this is one of my favorite go-to soundtracks. I think this was a movie before it was starring Kerry Russell. It was a movie before it was a Broadway show. And I think if you know the Broadway show, then go back and see the movie. You appreciate even more the brilliant job they did bringing music to tell this story. It's amazing. I've seen it twice on Broadway. Hamilton, can't be denied. What else can be said? It's
right. We've said it. The Band's Visit.
This is a personal favorite of mine. I got to see this show with my aunt. We went to see this because one of her high school friends is a Broadway producer. And so we got to go and get tickets and see the show. And it's like nothing that has ever been on on Broadway. The music is really original. The musicians were there on stage. The show was not everybody's cup of tea because it's a very simple kind of story. If you saw the movie, it's even more so. But the music itself is absolutely worth a listen, and you should check it out. It's just beautiful and unique and very innovative.
Very atmospheric, although very on a small, intimate scale. Not your typical Broadway musical that I generally gravitate to, but I did enjoy it. All right, Carly, your list.
It's amazing.
Yeah, your list for the top music of the last 30 years. Of course, you've got, there you go. My name is Elf. That's Mormon.
I started with Mormon because I think that it is so geniusly written to be funny and to have elements of traditional musical theater. And yeah, Hairspray, another one where I think every single song in Hairspray is really great. I just love every single song, so I had to put it on the list. I listen to this constantly. Yeah.
All right. And you like Wicked too?
Yep. It has to be included on this list. Really fun. I mean, again, it takes the characters that you already know, and it just completely spins them around and uses great music. Yeah.
And of course,
Dear Evan Hansen. I think this one's interesting. Again, I don't usually like musicals that are, I mean, I feel like Dear Evan Hansen is just purely pop music. It's one of those musicals, it's purely pop music, but I think they did it so well, and every song is really great. Yeah.
And of course, there we go again.
Yeah, Hamilton, again, it's completely unique for Broadway. It, incorporates more of like a rap style, but it has I feel like it has a variety of styles in it, honestly, and I think that's really cool. Really great music. I know every word to Hamilton. And then right after Hamilton is In the Heights. These musicals are really, you mentioned In the Heights already. I think it deserves just as much recognition as Hamilton for music. Because again, it's another musical that really incorporates other styles, incorporates more Latinx style music. They have salsa and, all that fun, flavorful music in there. I just think it's super fun to listen to. It's another one that's just full of bops. So.
Right. So the next, one of the last categories is storytelling. What shows talk about the story, give you the plot, and tell a story that's meaningful, that has power? So, Lisa, you said Hamilton was your number one on that.
Yeah, Hamilton, because of the approach to telling the story. Lin-Manuel read the biography by Ron Chernow on vacation and was like, Alexander Hamilton is so hip hop. Like that inspiration to have him be inspired to tell a story of America's origins with a population today that represents who we are was just very innovative storytelling. Whether you like rap or don't like rap, this is something that is special and was brave and unique to bring to Broadway. A Chorus Line, again, because it was intimate, revealing very personal stories of usually dancers who don't even have lines in a show. That it was something very innovative and told very simply for the start. They're in their audition clothes, when they're doing this musical. And so I think the impact of hearing their stories, their true stories, was pretty amazing.
Right.
Cabaret, taking a very dark period in history, a dark show, and turning it on its head. The character of the MC was such a great device and so creative. There's a whole opening of Act 2 where he's dancing with a gorilla, and everybody's like, ha ha ha, it's so funny. And Joel Grey is a master performer, of course. And then at the end, he's like, depending on the show, they say she isn't a Miskite at all, or she doesn't look Jewish at all. And everybody all of a sudden feels really gross in the audience, like, I was just laughing at this, how easy it was to get sucked in. And I just think it's a brilliant, brilliant show and an innovative way to tell a story.
Of course, it's based on life in Berlin during the 30s and the rise of Hitler and Nazism. And so it has all of that.
And a straight play called I Am a Camera was what the inspiration was from.
Right. Okay. Gypsy.
This is one, and this made one of Carly's other lists, but I'm like, this is one of the classic stories of all time. The storyline is so great, and what a star turn it is for whoever plays Mama Rose. It's just it's an iconic show that you can see again and again, and every actress finds something new in it, and it's fabulous.
Gypsy Rose Lee was the stripper who started out in vaudeville with her very, very show business mother and her sister, who became an actress. Right?
Yeah, it's a great storyline.
Right.
It's awesome. And the Bette Midler version is actually almost verbatim for what the stage show is. So if you're ever wanting to check out the most authentic version, check it out.
Oh, you think that's the Bette Midler? Well, I have here, as I saw this on Broadway
Patti
a
LuPone,
couple of years ago, Patti LuPone. She won a Tony for doing this work, and she was pretty good in it too. Yeah. Yes. All right. You've also got Hadestown, which I haven't seen, which won the award this past year.
And again, an innovative way to tell an old story. You know, this show, Hadestown, that we see on Broadway, actually started, the composer did it as a one-woman show at a tiny community theater in Vermont. And now it made its way, you know, it just grew, and people really were drawn to the way that she told this story. And now it's a full-fledged Tony Award-winning musical. It's just an interesting way and approach to tell the story. Fun Home, which made Carly's list also. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, the storyline, but the innovative way of telling the story. This was actually inspired by a graphic novel. The author of the graphic novel was telling her story. She actually was not on board with it becoming a musical at first. Then she saw it and she said, I think this tells my family story even better than my book. It's told with a lot of nuance, detail. The music is phenomenal, and it goes back and forth through time. And so you see this main character at different stages in her life, which I find fascinating and really unique.
Right. And your last one is something that I don't know very much about, the last 5 years.
This for when you're talking about storylines and storytelling. There's another show, Merrily We Roll Along, that runs backwards and stuff too. But this, the one character starts where it's the end of their relationship and goes backwards and tells the story until the beginning of the relationship. And the other one, the boy, starts with the happy part of their relationship and ends, you know, so their stories intersect. So you know where it's going to end up, and you see how they're in totally different places. It's just a two-person show. Jason Robert Brown again, tremendous music. And the movie is actually pretty good.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to have to see it. I'm going to have to put it on the list. And now, Carly, you have your top storytelling shows, and there again, you love Hairspray.
Yeah. So, this is a story that I really loved when I was younger. Again, sentimental. And I mean, race has always been kind of an important thing for me, being mixed. And so when I was younger, I just remember looking, and there is one line in the show when like Penny and Seaweed get together and she looks in the camera and says, I am now a checkerboard chick. And I remember thinking, like, my mom and my dad are like that. And that was just really exciting for me. So I just love this story so much. So yeah, that's why it's on my list.
Right. You know, it takes place in iconic Baltimore during the period when race relations need some work, and they're integrating a TV program, sort of like a bandstand show that I watched when I was a teenager growing up on the Dick Clark Bandstand. This is similar to that. And so it does have that social justice element to it, as well as a great story, great dancing, and great songs. So I love that show too. The energy in that show is fantastic. Right, Lisa? You would agree with that.
One of my favorites. We did it when I was at Hartford Children's Theater, and it was just such a fun and terrific thing to be a part of. The stage show is great.
Right. And Carly, you also like the cabaret.
Yeah, I agree that this is a really innovative way to tell a really dark story and almost make it fun, and then like flip. It's like there's parts where you're really enjoying it and it's really light, and then you realize it's really dark, and it's, again, it's focusing on that period of time, when Hitler was rising to power. So it's a really interesting way to tell a story, though.
Right. And The Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. Yeah. So it's another one where I did a lot of research on this real story, right? It was based on a real family. But I think this is a really cool story and a really great musical that, again, I watched when I was really little and has a place in my heart.
Right. And of course, that's another photo from the original show with Mary Martin playing the role of Maria and all the kids around her. And it's based on the Von Trapp family who actually did come to the States and went to Vermont and had an inn there and entertained and so on. And of course, another childhood favorite.
Yep. Annie. So Annie made my list again. I just love Annie. But again, it's one of those shows when you're a little girl, everyone watches Annie. Everyone knows Annie. And, it's that story. Everyone wants to some degree to be Annie, to be in whatever situation, then just get to be like rich and pampered and live in this mansion. And I remember watching that and I absolutely loved it when I was little. That's why it made the list.
Right. And your last one again?
Hamilton. This has been talked about so much, but again, it's just it's very innovative. It's so new and you'd never expect it to work, but it does.
Right. Okay. And now the final category. Roll the drums. Your top musicals of all time. So Lisa you both have, I think, 6 on there or so. All right, Lisa, you go. Number 1.
Sweeney Todd is a perfect musical. The music is phenomenal. The lyrics are clever. It's so smart and challenging, and the storyline is sweeping. It's a great.
Yeah, it's not sweeping. It's knifing. It's it's a barber. Awesome. It's a barber shaves people, and then someone makes pies out of them. Right?
It's so great.
It really is. It really is an unusual.
I saw Terrence Mann do it at the Connecticut Theater Company, the one on Yukon,
right.
a couple of years ago. He was phenomenal. Sunday in the Park with George is my personal favorite show. I think the music is so much about what it means to be an artist that this is, if you haven't heard this soundtrack, Carly, give it a try, because it just really hits my heart with the themes of this show. And I saw it with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he was amazing. He was just as amazing as Mandy Patinkin.
Right. And of course, Hamilton, we've said.
Hamilton can't be denied. Next.
Cannot be denied. You got it.
About Hamilton.
That's it.
Your next top. All right.
You can't deny that it was such a movement in theater.
Okay. Rent.
Again, because of what, it really changed Broadway, and it was a phenomenon. Oklahoma, like we talked about, it was revolutionary at the time with how it really made songs part of the storytelling and enhanced the art form.
Okay.
And Cabaret, again, the boldness of telling an important story in a creative and entertaining way. I think that's how artists in general connect with people and can really draw attention to situations without feeling like you're preaching at somebody, right. Like our politicians do. Like when you can connect to the humanness of a story, it opens your eyes to what's really going on, and you can understand it a lot better. Fiddler on the Roof is like that as well. When you get to know these characters and then see what they're put through and what they go through, you can change your mind, and you can open your heart and your mind. So that's my list.
Okay, that's fabulous. All right, Carly, here are your top. Well, I just wanted to show the movie version of that, Lisa, with Liza Minnelli.
All right,
Carly, your top.
I've talked about this enough. I think all of these have been on my list before because they're good. So Book of Mormon, I think, is the best written musical ever because it has the music, it has the jokes, it has dance, it has everything. Everything in Book of Mormon is like perfect. I would watch it a million times, and I don't think it would ever not be funny and not be the best thing to watch.
Okay, Mormon, number 2, Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago's another one where it's so simple, but it's so great. And it just, the music is great, the dance is great, and it's such a great show to watch. I've said enough about like all of these.
And Guys and Dolls.
Yeah, Guys and Dolls. I mean, again, this is one that I was in, and I got to play Adelaide, so I think I really like it for that reason. But it's another one with just really great music, and even though it's kind of an older musical, I think it stands the test of time. I think it's still good to this day. Stacks up against everything that's come out since.
Well, it was so much fun to watch you play Adelaide in it. And also, when I was young and working at a summer camp as the drama and music counselor, I put on Guys and Dolls, met your grandfather there, and I've never been in love before from Guys and Dolls is our song. So that
Aw.
show means so much. Not to mention, one of my best friends in New York City was the personal assistant to the writer of that show. Okay. She was the personal assistant and stayed with him until he died. So that's was a wonderful experience to learn about too. Okay, your next show.
Right.
There it is. Oh, I wanted to show the movie version.
Yeah.
Not as great as the show. I don't know about you, Lisa. I love Marlon Brando in there, even though he can't sing. But it was still a good movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And there's
nothing.
another one.
Show is
There's
just
another one in Spanish. Elas.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Your next show, Carly, top musicals of all time.
Hamilton. Yeah,
Hamilton.
Hamilton has to make the list. You said enough about
Enough
Hamilton.
said.
It's great. It's
Next
great.
one.
Yeah, I've already talked
Enough
about this one
said.
too and why I love it so much. I've talked about most of these and why I love them so much. This one is, another one that I've watched since I was really little, and I love it a lot. So yeah.
And your final one. Another scene from The Sound of Music.
Is that my final? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sound of Music. I mean, I think a lot of these they're musicals that I've listened to since I was so little. And even as I learned about new musicals, see new musicals, I can never shake them off my list. They just have, I just feel like I have a history with them. I know so much about them now. I love them. I know all the songs. And so, yeah, it makes my list.
Okay. Let's go back to just finishing up. I think we've given, if people watch this, they have so many choices and so many interesting lists. What's so fascinating is that you two agreed on so many things, even though you didn't discuss it beforehand. And I just made a note that Carly, you loved Hamilton, you loved Hairspray, and you loved Mormon the best. And Lisa, you loved Hamilton, and you loved A Chorus Line, and you loved Les Mis. Those were some of your most favorites. But I was noticing My Fair Lady wasn't on anybody's list. Fiddler on the Roof wasn't on anybody's list. La Cage aux Folles wasn't on anybody's list, which is one of the shows that I enjoy. Any comments on that, on those things?
Well, Fiddler on the Roof I was pretty close to putting it on a couple of lists. I think that's a show that has stood the test of time, and again, it's full of hits. But when we were comparing just the score, for instance, I'm there were other scores that I think are better as standalone scores. La Cage, also a great innovative show, just didn't particularly make my list. You mentioned another one. What was the other one you mentioned? My Fair Lady. Yeah, My Fair Lady is it's a beautiful show with some great, iconic characters. Just when compared to in the same era, I chose shows like, Cabaret and Chicago over that.
Sure. No, your lists were wonderful, and people are really can get educated by watching the shows and learning about what you discussed. And I just want to go over the ballads. You both chose your 5 top ballads. And Lisa, you chose Music of the Night from Phantom, On My Own from Les Mis. And I'm telling you, I'm not going from Dreamgirls. That was one of those first act closing songs that was so sensational. And She Used to Be Mine. What show is that from?
That is from Waitress.
From what?
I think that was on Waitress. That almost made
Oh, from Waitress. Okay. I have to see. It's still on Broadway. I've got to see that one. And Memory, of course, from Cats. We didn't mention Cats, which was so innovative at the time, where the whole theater was created as a place for the cats to dwell in, and you can go up to the stage and see them in the intermission and so on. And Carly, your top ballads were All I Ask of You from Phantom. You both chose songs.
I put in some
Phantom.
duet ballads because I
On My
love
Own
better.
from Les Mis. Lisa chose that too. Here's another one, iconic. What I Did for Love from a chorus line, right? That's an iconic song. Somewhere, West Side Story, true. And again, Carly, thank you. I've never been in love before from Guys and Dolls,
I know. I knew
which
you'd
is
want that
a
on there, so I
lovely
put it there.
ballad.
But I love it
So
too.
this is, yeah, this has been great. So just final, give me your final thoughts on why people need to go to live theater, especially live musicals. Lisa,
Well,
final
like I
thoughts.
say, I'm fortunate to be part of Chestnut Street Playhouse and other arts organizations. I'm a lifelong supporter. I think seeing shows on Broadway is fantastic because you see some of the best talent in the world, but don't shortchange the opportunity you have to see really great, smart, innovative, sometimes lesser known shows at local universities, community theaters, local professional theaters, and support high school theater. Really go and support and see, it better educates you to appreciate when you do go to Broadway and see something that knocks your socks off, when you can see those elements in other places. I've seen some of my favorite shows I've ever seen in regional theaters and student theater.
Absolutely.
And I think
Carly,
being a theater supporter is that's a lifelong thing. When you support the arts at any level, your life will be better for it.
okay, and of course I agree. Although Carly's expressing how much she wants to go back to Broadway, she knows that regional theater is great because in New Bedford they have the Zeiterion, and we've seen many shows there, from Mary Poppins to Hairspray to My Fair Lady, and they do a fantastic job as well. But there is still that mystique of Broadway. So, Carly, final thoughts. What's your next thing you're going to be listening to? On
I don't know. I feel like there's so many things on your list, Lisa, that I should probably give a listen. There's a bunch. I think I'm going to listen to Sweeney Todd. I haven't heard that one, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. So that's
Listen
definitely.
to the soundtrack before you see the movie.
Yeah. Oh, I always listen to the soundtrack
Yeah.
first because the movie always chops out the best songs.
All right. Well, this has been a wonderful time. I appreciate both of you so much, your interests, your talents. Next time, we need to have some video and audio and some of the music. But I hope we've given people a taste of the world of Broadway and movie musicals, especially during this time. Turn on the TV, go to Wikipedia, get the soundtracks, put them on your playlist, and listen. And you will be moved and amazed by what you hear. So thank you, everyone, for seeing us this time on Talkback. See you next time. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Lisa. Bye, Carly. Thank you so much. Bye.